Hello, hello, my friends. It's about that time. We are back at it again this Saturday afternoon with another episode of The Rivet Show. It is Artiste Saturday again. So today I'm going to be most likely working on my text-based RPG that I started last Saturday. I'm working on it in Godot, and I did a little work on it this morning, just kind of implementing a lot of the more unexciting bits, working through the tutorial, because I know it's not like super fun to watch me just kind of watch a tutorial the entire time. I'm kind of hoping, my plan is that I'm gonna get all of the basics, like all of the basic framework in place to put everything together through this tutorial, and then once I'm done with the tutorial, I'll start implementing my own stuff and like stylizing it, adding graphics, adding effects, and then if I need to look up other tutorials to do specific things, then I'll do that as well. But yeah, like I said again, these I try to keep these game dev streams pretty chill. So I might not talk a whole lot. There's probably going to be multiple instances where I'm just kind of really focusing in and trying to get what I need to get done. But yeah, I have this set up so that you can at least see what I'm working on. Let me see if it'll change when I'm. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah, I've just been following a text-based a tutorial by a person by the name of JMBIV, Jimbiv. So I'm just working through this tutorial series, and then hopefully by the end of it, I can start customizing more so. But yeah, I'm just gonna have music going on in the background. I'm gonna be just working through it. Let me show you what I have so far, the progress I made this morning. So, what I implemented in between last stream and this stream is we've got a in the background. Well, let me just pull up the entire thing. So right now we got it so that there's like a helper message that'll play at the beginning of the when the game first starts. We made it so that when I enter, we now have a command processor. So like when I enter a command, it will recognize the command and tell me that I can't do it because it's not an available command. But there is some available commands, like we have go. It'll ask go where. We don't have a map or anything that we can move around with, but go is like a keyword that you would use to say like go west or go north or whatever. We have a help command that lets you know what commands we have. And then we also implemented a scroll bar that automatically scrolls and follows and has a history, but it only recognizes up to 30 lines. Actually, let me test and see if the 30 lines applies to that helper message at the top. It does. Okay, cool. So yeah, we've got a history that deletes itself. We've got automatic scrolling, and then right now I think we're working on a room manager that would manage the map and where all of the rooms are. Right now he's setting up kind of like a visual interface for the various rooms, but not putting them in the camera view, so we can have them out separately. And he made a very good point that since we can put these out separately and we're not going to be moving this camera at all, we could set up a different viewport that has like a view of all of these rooms, and like it kind of gives you like a visual map of what's of the entire like whatever you've explored. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been working on. It is so far going really well. I'm really excited about some of the possibilities because I've already been thinking of ways that I could interchange stuff out and stylize it in a way that I would like. And I've been doing like small little stylistic changes here and there, but I haven't done anything too significant. But I have plenty of ideas in my head of how I'd want that to work. But yeah, we're just gonna continue on. I'm gonna see if I can maybe lower down the volume of the music a little bit, and then hopefully that's loud enough for his voice. And I'm gonna check the volume levels. I'm gonna start over this video, actually.
In this video, we're gonna actually implement rooms into our game. We're gonna start with one basic room. We're gonna learn how to add names and descriptions to those rooms, and then output them to the player whenever the player changes rooms, and how to set the player to start off in one room. Let's get started. Okay, so at the end of our last video, we had implemented the go command. So I can type go any direction, or really go anything at this point. I can type go west, and it'll say you go west. But the problem is that we don't have a concept of rooms or space really in our game right now. It's just kind of repeating whatever the player types. So what we need to do is make a room object that we can use in our game. We need to make a room system that will let the player go between rooms, and it'll keep track of which rooms are connected to each other. And so we're going to do that now. Now, in most game engines, if you were making a text adventure and you weren't using like Unity or Unreal or Godot, you were using a framework or code specifically.
I'm also going to be speeding up the playback of some of these videos just to, because they are long.
Like a text adventure, you've got to ask yourself, why would I do this in a game engine like Godot or Unity, etc., instead of just kind of rolling it on my own, because there's not a lot of graphical interface. And I would argue there's two reasons for that. One reason why you might want to use Godot or another engine is because it makes it really easy to format what we've got here. This graphical user interface is really easy to use Godot's container system, so it does a lot of that work for you. So that's one thing. But even that, if you're pretty good at that, or you just prefer to do it via code, it's not a big draw. So one other thing that might be really nice about making a game.
I'm also going to be, again, I'm going to be monitoring the chat on my phone for the most part, because I can't really check it. I only have so many screens. Let me make sure that the audio for the music isn't too loud. Okay, yeah, it's fine.
Is that you get access to a bunch of other built-in editor
and then
functions.
Hopefully,
so for example, instead of just like making a bunch of rooms via code where you just instance this room and this room by just calling a line of code each.
Okay,
like
yeah, that's pretty clear voice.
TypeScript or JavaScript or Java. One nice thing we can do is we can actually use Godot's editor to instance all of our rooms in our scene tree and edit them visually. And eventually, one thing I hope we get to do is we can make a visual map of our rooms and edit and connect them like that. So we actually have a visual map editor rather than just having to rely on connecting things via code. So we're not going to get there quite yet. That's something I hope we'll get to in the future. But just wanted to bring that up as a reason why doing a game like this in an engine like Godot is actually might be worth the effort. It might not, depending on what you want to do, but it's something worth considering as you get started. Okay, so let's start building our rooms. So what I'm going to do is come over to our game here, and you'll see now we've got our background. This is really just our graphical. Very good question, especially because rooms, ostensibly right at the start at least, won't really have a visual representation of the player.
Made a room manager node,
make a way so that eventually, if we do have that visual map I talked about,
which we have right here, and then a room panel that can act as like a map if we need it.
There's really no reason, there's no downside to using a panel container here, so we might as well just get it started now. And I'm going to hit W, so that I'll hit this move key up here. I'm going to move our room up here. So our room as a panel container exists in our world space, but not actually be visible to the player. And you'll see that if I open this up, we can't see our room node. And so this is good because we can maybe just have this random space up here as our map later on, just have a viewport or a camera that looks this kind of a square in here, and we can just look into that. But getting ahead of ourselves, we'll get back to that later on. Okay, so we've got a room node. Let's actually add the script, because this is, kind of what is going to determine our gameplay here. So one thing I'm going to do is right-click on a room node, and I'm going to say save branch as scene, because we want to save this as its own scene that we can continue to reuse as we continue to develop our game. So I'll do that. Then I'll open up our room scene here. And I'm just going to, its rect position, set that, or restore that to the default. And I'm going to add a script here so that all of our rooms will have it. And it's just going to be room GD, and we'll be good to go. And I'm just going to make sure, since I reset our position on our room node, our base room scene, I'm going to need to drag this one up somewhere else over here so it's not back at 0, 0 since the position got reset. Okay, so let's add some functionality to our room. One thing we'll notice is we've got a room name and a description, so we probably want to set that within our code. So what I'm going to do is add two export variables. I'm going to say export, this will be string, export string, var room name, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the room description. This will be room description. Okay, and then we can just default this to room name and default this to this is the description of the room. Okay, perfect. So now we've got these things we can change from the editor. So what I can do, for example, now is come back to our game, and you'll see our room here. I could change this to be a house and a random house. So all of a sudden we're able to add rooms and edit them really easily from our scene tree. We don't actually have to do it via code. So that's already a nice step. But what we want to do is actually add some ways to get around and add rooms to our game. Okay, so now we've got a room. I just randomly called it house. You can call it whatever you want. We'll probably change this as we go, but just to get started. Now we've got to tell our game that we need to start it off in this house. We need to actually tell our game this concept of rooms and make sure that we can move between stuff. And there's a couple ways we could do that. We could, for example, have another export variable where we drag one of our rooms in our room manager. That's one way to do it. I think what I want to do for now is actually do it via code, despite how we've been leaning towards the editor earlier on. I think it makes a little bit more sense to start this one off by code, and I'll explain that in a second. Let me just also rename this to be house room so we can actually tell which one it is from the scene tree. And so we need our command processor to know about rooms so that when we type go, the command processor can actually figure out where we're going. But at the same time, our command processor shouldn't be super responsible for doing a bunch of the, it's not the one that should know about all the different exits and entrances to a certain room. Each room should keep track of that on its own, and the command processor shouldn't be the place where we initialize our game state. That should be in our game script. So what I'm going to do, this is a common pattern of mine whenever I need a parent node to pass data into a child node right at the start. I use a function called initialize. You can really call it whatever you want. That's just my kind of go-to.
Initialize.
It's easy to understand, hey, this is a function that needs to be called when this node should really start running. It's different than the built-in ready because this one can actually be called by a parent. And so what I'm going to do here is just say starting room. And so we're going to have an initialize function where our game is able to pass in the start.
Func initialize. Starting room. I actually need to move my fucking keyboard over. I often find myself needing twist my torso towards my keyboard with my new setup. Okay, that works.
Starting room to our command processor. We'll just do pass here. And what that means is that we need to keep track of our current room in our command processor. We could also keep track of this in our game state and pass that in to our command processor here. That might be the better way to separate those concerns. So that might be a better architectural decision, but we'll just kind of start with this now and then we can change it pretty easily later on. So what I'm going to do is just say var current room, and this is going to be null. And so what's going to happen is that when we call initialize and we pass in our starting room, I'm going to say current room equals starting room. So we're going to pass in our starting room and set that to be our current room. And then whenever we process a command, we can use our current room anywhere else to process that. So if we say go west, we can get the west exit of our current room. And then we can change our current room to be the room that is whatever is to the west. So we're going to kind of use that as our pattern just to start working on our command processing. One other important note that we need to think about is how the player and the room should be separated. We could make it so that the player knows what room they're in. But I think it's slightly better design if we make the player a little agnostic of the current room and we let rooms handle all of the items and NPCs and even the player that's in it. And we might have some, we might go back and forth on that later on, but I think it's a good way to try and keep rooms and players separate for right now. So what we need to do is actually pass in and call this initialize function from our game script. So I'm going to come up here, and then when we start our game up and are ready, what I'm going to do, we're going to have to change some of this, but what I'm going to do is we'll add a room manager on ready here. So I'll say on ready var room manager, and this is just going to be a connection, or we're going to just grab our room.
Oh god, we're importing more things. This main file is getting quite large. I'm also a lot of these strings are going to end up getting replaced with stuff that's stored in JSON or text files. But these are mostly just placeholders things. Eventually I'm going to have it so these come out of a file of some sort. Room manager. Give me the room manager. Okay, there we go.
Room manager, pretty simple. And what I'm going to do is say command processor dot initialize, because remember we added that initialize function, and here we need to get our starting room. Now again, this is where we could have an export variable, we could drag it in or whatever, but I think it's good enough for now. Just say room manager dot get child, and we'll just say 0. So this is going to get the first child of our room manager because get child is 0 indexed, so this is going to be number 1. This will crash if you don't have a child in your room manager, obviously, but we'll just assume we do for now. It's a pretty simple fix. So now what's going to happen is our command processor, whenever a game starts, is going to assume, or it's going to set our current room, the room the player starts in, to be this house room, and then the player will be able to go from there. Now, one thing we want to do, we've added a description and a name to our room. We actually want to change the starting text to line up to what the current room we're in is. So whenever you go to a room, it should say, you are now in this room, here are the things that are here are the exits, etc. We want to make a new kind of locating output be given to the player so they can understand where they're at each time they change rooms, and so that's what we're going to need to do now. So in order to make that change, we need a way for our command processor to tell our game, hey, there's a new response that has come based on whatever the players just outputted. And right now we really care about moving rooms, but there's a lot of things that are going to need to happen with that. It might be an item to respond and say, hey, the player picked up this item.
Add response to game, starting message dot text. Oh shit, fuck.
Item. And so we want to provide an easy way for our command processor to tell our game that there's a new response that needs to be printed out. And so what we're going to do is add a signal to our command processor. So I'm going to say signal, and we're going to just call this a response generated. This response generated.
I think it's really neat that you can make your own signals as well. I think that's
signal
good.
is going to take a parameter, which is going to say
I like
response text. And here we're going to pass in the text of the response that needs to be sent to our game script. And so what we can do here on our game is actually connect to our command processor. So we use a command processor.connect, and here.
That's in the main one.
Here we'll say response generated, we'll say self, and we'll say handle response generated. So we are going to need to add this handle response generated signal, or this function that responds to the signal somewhere in our game script. And it's important here that we.
Wow, Jesus. He typed all that real fast. Well, it probably auto-completed, but still.
Connect this before we initialize our game. And the reason this is important is because we want to make sure that a response gets printed out when we initialize our game and our players move to their starting room. So if we connect this after, when we move our player to their starting room, this initialize will get called before we've actually connected this, so nothing will get printed out. So just make sure you have this line of code before you initialize your command processor. And so we can just come down here. I'll try and group all the things that are doing responses down in this area. So what I'm going to do is just say function, and I'll just command or copy in. What I said there, this will be response text. We'll do pass here. And so you'll notice when we're doing our starting message up on line 22 that we are, or on line 21, we are instancing a response and then saying what that text is. So I'm actually going to just copy 21 to 23. I'm going to cut and paste them.
Oh, okay. Dang, 21 to 23. Which one did he?
The things that are doing responses down in this area. So what I'm going to do is just say function, and I'll just command or copy in what I said there. This will be response text. We'll do pass here. And so you'll notice when we're doing our starting message up on line 22 that we are, or on line 21, we are instancing a response and then saying what that text is. So I'm actually going to just copy 21 to 23.
So it's the starting message to the add response to game.
Cut and paste them. Come down here and throw those in. And so what we want to do now is say, we'll just say response here. So whenever a response needs to be generated, we're going to instance our response, which remember that is the type of output that we made. It's a scene that we made, a custom one, that should be displayed whenever the game has a response for the player. And then we're going to say response.text equals, and no hard-coded anymore. It's going to be response text. Amazing. And then we're going to add this response to the game. And so now we've made a really dynamic way to do what we were doing.
Okay, so I need to get all this. I'm just going to cut that. There we go.
With the starting.
I like the refactoring that like happens as we go.
Not just starting text. So now we've got that. This is going to get called because of this connection. Our handle response generated function will get called when we move to our current room, which is great. Now we just need to actually emit this signal and handle emitting it correctly from within our command processor. And we'll do that right now. So if I go to our command processor, we need to output this script or output this signal whenever the player moves to a new room. And because we're handling our current room here, we're going to keep this within our command processor script because that's where we're handling it. Again, we might move this out to our game later, so our command processor doesn't have to do a lot of that state changing stuff. But for now, just to get something that works, we'll keep it in here. And so we're going to need to move rooms a couple times. We're going to do it right here when we initialize our game, and we're going to be doing it whenever we go to a new room. And so I'm going to make a helper function down at the bottom here. That's just going to say function, and it'll be change room. And what we're going to do here is emit signal, and this is going to be response generated. And now here we've got to have the text of the response that's generated. And so what we need to do is actually pass in a new room here. And so when we go to this room, we can say new room dot description or room description. And it'd be really nice to make sure that room description is actually a property on a room. I know it is one because if I go to room, I'll see room description. But it'd be nice if Godot helped me by giving me that autocomplete. And so what we're going to do, as we've done before, is come into our room.gd, and I'm going to say class name, and this will be room.
Oh, class name. I keep forgetting. I forget what class name does. Like, it makes it available to everything, I'm assuming. Let me see. Class name room. What does class name do? I kind of want to look it up.
And so we'll define an actual class for our room. And now what we can do here is say that new room is of type room. And then
wait. Shadow's a native class? Oh, it's because it's... starting room. I'm just gonna name it that, and then... Ooh, no. Might have fucked some things up. What do we got? Room. Hit signal response. The identifier new room isn't declared in the current scope. Oh, okay. And then I feel like there's another place that I've missed that I need to change it. Is it saying it shadows a native class?
Moves to a new room. And because we're handling our current room here, we're going to keep this within our command processor script because that's where we're handling it. Again, we might move this out to our game later so our command processor doesn't have to do a lot of that state changing stuff. But for now, just to get something that works, we'll keep it in here. And so we're going to need to move rooms a couple times. We're going to do it right here when we initialize our game, and we're going to be doing it whenever we go to a new room. And so I'm going to make a helper function down at the bottom here that's just going to say function, and it'll be change room. And what we're going to do here is emit signal, and this is going to be response generated. And now here we've got to have the text of the response that's generated. And so what we need to do is actually pass in a new room here. And so when we go to this room, we can say new room dot description or room description. And it'd be really nice to make sure that room description is actually a property on a room. I know it is one because if I go to room, I'll see room description, but it'd be nice if Godot helped me by giving me that autocomplete. And so what we're going to do, as we've done before, is come into our room.gd, and I'm going to say class name, and this will be room. And so we'll define an actual class for our room. And now what we can do here is say that new room is of type room. And then if I get rid of room description, start typing it again, you'll see it'll autocomplete. So this is really nice. So whenever we change rooms, we are going to then output our room description. What we could actually do to jury rig this a little bit is do something like, let me just copy this line.
Parse error. I don't know, like, class room shadows a native class. The class shadows a native class. I wonder what that means. The class shadows a native class. Shadows. Shadows. Oh no. Shadows. Okay, there we go. Weird. The class room. Shadows. Wait, hold on. Parse error. Weird. I'm not sure. I mean, I wonder if it'll crash if I... Yeah, it's gonna... Classroom shadows a native class. What if I just take that out? Like... File in use locked or lacking permissions. That's odd. I don't like that. Why is there like a... It looked like there was like a signal there or something. Because this is the room script. What does that mean? That doesn't... Oh, that's weird. Why is this happening now? Unable to write... to file. Godot. Oh, it's because I'm running a... Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because that shadows a native class. I don't know.
We're going to add this response to the game. And so now we've made a really dynamic way each time they change rooms. And so that's what we're
Did
going
I
to do
miss
now.
something, perhaps?
So in order to make that change, we need a way for our command processor to tell our game, hey, there's a new response that has come based on whatever the players has outputted. And right now, we really care about moving rooms. But
Oh, okay. I think I see what happened. I changed this, but I didn't change anything else. So I'm going to change that, and then I'm going to change it on the base. I think that was the... Except right now, it's telling me that it's, like, in use and, like, lacking permissions or something. Okay, there we go. It's still doing it. Maybe I need to just restart Godot. I feel like I had that issue during the Let 'em Dare. I need to change this. Back to room. Save. Okay, cool. It's working now. So what I probably need to do is I need to change the base to starting room. There we go. Is it still gonna give me the problem? Yeah, it still is. I don't know what this means. Do I need to change the script too?
But there's a lot of things.
The script is the same on
that are going
his.
to need to happen with that. It might be an item to respond and say, hey, the player picked up this item. And so we want to provide an easy way for our command processor to tell our
Hey, how's it going,
game that this
BJP?
new
Nice to see you.
that needs to be printed out. And so what we're going to do is add a signal to our command processor. So I'm gonna say
We're just
signal,
trying to
and
work
we can
out
just call this a
bugs.
response generated. This response generated signal is going to take a parameter, which is going to say response text. And here
Oh wait, hold on. Actually, signal response generated. Did I not make the signal in this? That might be my mistake. Oh, no. That's in that. Okay, yeah, I had it in the right one.
we're going to pass in the text of the response that needs to be sent to our game script. And so what we can do here on our game is actually connect to our command processor. So we can say command processor.connect, and here we'll say
Command processor.connect.
response generated. We'll say self, and we'll say handle response generated. So we are going to need to add this handle response generated signal, or this function that responds to the signal somewhere in our game script. And it's important here that we connect this before we initialize our game. And the reason this is important is because we want to make sure that a response gets printed out when we initialize our game and our players move to their starting room. So if we connect this after, when we move our player to their starting room, this initialize will get called before we've actually connected this, so nothing will get printed out. So just make sure you have this line of code before you initialize your command processor. And so we can just come down here. I'll try and group all the things that are doing responses down in this area. So what I'm going to do is just say function, and I'll just command or copy in what I said there. This will be response text. We'll do pass here. And so you'll notice when we're doing our starting message up on line 22 that we are, or on line 21, we are instancing a response and then saying what that text is. So I'm actually going to just copy 21 to 23. I'm going to cut and paste them. Come down here and throw those in. And so what we want to do now is say, we'll just say response here. So whenever a response needs to be generated, we're going to instance our response, which remember that is the type of, going to be able to respond to anything, not just starting text. So now we've got that. This is going to get called because of this connection. Our handle response generated function will get called when we move to our current room, which is great. Now we just need to actually emit this signal and handle emitting it correctly from within our command processor. And we'll do that right now. So if I go to our command processor, we need to output this script or output this signal whenever the player moves to a new room. And because we're handling our current room here, we're going to keep this within our command processor script because that's where we're handling it. Again, we might move this out to our game later so our command processor doesn't have to do a lot of that state changing stuff. But for now, just to get something that works, we'll keep it in here. And so there's we're going to need to move rooms a couple times. We're going to do it right here when we initialize our game, and we're going to be doing it whenever we go to a new room. And so I'm going to make a helper function down at the bottom here that's just going to say function, and it'll be change room. And what we're going to do here is emit signal, and this is going to be response generated. And now here we've got to have the text of the response that's generated. And so what we need to do is actually pass in a new room here. And so when we go to this room, we can say new room dot description, or room description. And it'd be really nice to make sure that room description is actually a property on a room. I know it is one because if I go to room, I'll see room description, but it'd be nice if Godot helped me by giving me that autocomplete. And so what we're going to do, as we've done before, is come into our room.gd, and I'm going to say class name, and this will be room. And so we'll define.
I'm not sure what exactly. Class name. Set class name. There is currently no description for this property. Interesting. So the class Shadows, a native class, Godot. Classes are a fundamental data type of GD native. They are used for Godot's own types, such as nodes, as well as custom ones defined by you. Here we focus on defining custom classes. When working with Godot Rust, your Rust codes, that's Rust. This is Rust. This isn't... Classes describe an aggregate of TA fields such as variables and defines the operations such as methods. Extends node 2D. Is panel container? Well, no, he has panel container in there as well. Use the class name keyword to name a class and add it to the global scope. Weird. So what's this error then? Native class. Shadows a native class. There's surprisingly like little shit. Okay, hold on. Maybe this'll help. Weird. They didn't come out with like any sort of solution to that. I'm not sure, because I'm doing everything as far as I can see. Like, there's not error 2. Like, I'm just trying to figure out what this means. It doesn't seem like there's nothing online that is telling me what this error even means. Error 2. Godot error. Maybe it's something that he encounters.
For our room. And now what we can do here is say that new room is of type room, and then if I get rid of room description, start typing again, you'll see it'll autocomplete. So this is really nice. So whenever we change rooms, we are going to then output our room description. What we could actually do to jury rig this a little bit is do something like, let me just copy this line. So the problem is that our description is not super helpful right now. So we could do, we could add another line like you go to, and then we'll just do new room and then room name. And so what this will do is it'll output 2 lines. It'll say you go to this new room, and then it'll output the description of that room. So calling this emit signal twice isn't ideal. We can make a better signal or just like a better response type, you know, like a move room response. We can have individual response types, you know, so there's tons of avenues we can explore to make it better, but we'll just do this for now, again, just trying to get something that works. And what we're actually going to need to do now too is say current room equals new room. And so one thing we're going to need to do is eventually call change room from go, but what we can definitely do right now is from initialize, we can just say change room and push in starting room. And so whenever we initialize the game, we're going to change rooms. It's not really changing because we don't have a current room, but it'll still work. We're going to change rooms, quote unquote, into the starting room, and we're going to print this out. So now in our game, we don't...
Where is starting room? Oh, okay. Wait. Initialize, starting room, current room. So where's the initialize function being used? Is it in main? Command processor initialize. That takes the starting room. Manager.getChild. Weird.
Don't have to have this hard-coded starting message anymore because when we initialize our game, it's just going to get printed out. So now that we have it, let's see this in action. So if I run our game, we'll see.
Yeah, there's something fucked up with this specifically, like right here. And I'm not sure how to fix it. It says Shadow's a native class. Oh wow, this is a lot of code. Jesus fucking Christ. I have no idea. Because I know that he's using an older version of Godot, so that could be something that's changed, but I'm not sure. Like, I'm just not familiar enough with what. Like, I could try to search it. Last name. String class name. Class declaration. Okay. Oh, maybe it needs to go above. I think that was it. No. No, it's still a problem. Still a problem. It doesn't tell me much after that. The code is meant to run in the editor. Place the tool keyword on the first line of the script. Follow with the class name if necessary. You turn a GD script file into a global type in your project using this feature. Class name. A file is a class. Extends base class. Class name my class. Extends base class. I wonder if it's just the name. Maybe it's just the fucking name. Maybe it just really doesn't like the name. Ah, that's lame. So it would be... New room? Would I just fucking... Should I set the class to new room? New room. Just gonna name it new room. And then does this now? It does now autofill. So it was literally just the name for some reason. The name was not good. Yo, did you just start making the game? Hey, sorry, my chat isn't like right up on screen. I've just been really hyper focused. But yeah, I just started last stream for the most part. So I'm still working on putting together the base bits with like the command processor. And yeah, it's coming together. I've just been following a tutorial really closely. So we're just gonna see how it goes. My goal is to maybe just get the game out, like put the parts together, the base infrastructure that this tutorial teaches me, and then kind of modify it and style it as my own after that. Because there's not much like you can copy when you're doing a text-based game, you know. It's mostly text. Only a few ways you can manipulate text. Let's see. Last name, new room. So I think renaming that made it better. You go to room name. This is the description. You go to room name. All right.
You go to a house, a random house. Okay, so this is obviously not very helpful at all, but we are now able to actually go to a room and see text specific to that room, which is really, really nice. Okay, so this is what we have, and it's really nice that it's tied to a room now, but there's three quick things I want to do before we end this video. One is I want to add back some of our welcome text, just to like kind of indicate to the player the game is started and give them some helpful hints. Two, I want to make this message a bit better, and three, I want to make it so we don't have to emit that signal twice every time we call it. So we'll start with the welcome text because that's going to be the easiest thing to change, and what we're actually going to do is use our new handle response generated function. Now that this is actually doing everything we need, we can just pass in some response text. Oh, also, I think off video I typed this as a string, so make sure you also do that just to get a little bit of better autocomplete here. But so what I'll do now, just to add some starting text, is I can say handle response generated, and here I'm just going to say
handle response generated. Frickin' cat is over there. being a nuisance, being a menace. She gets on top of desks and just causes chaos.
Say, welcome to the retro text adventure. You can type
Okay.
help. Help to see available commands. And so it's just a simple message, but now what it's going to do is just show that response right at the beginning, and it just gives the player something to start off with. Welcome to the retro text adventure. The game started.
She's over there causing complete chaos. Get down. Look at her. She don't even care. She don't care that she's been incriminated in federal crimes. What do you have to say for yourself? Meow. Meow. She like groaned. Meow. Nothing to say. Just groaning. She's upset that she was called out. Okay. We've got that.
See available commands. So I type help and I see this helpful message. So it's just a little bit better than what we had
Nice.
before. And okay, cool. That's good. Now I want to edit this message a little bit just to make it better because you go to house, a random house is kind of lame. So we'll fix that right now. So if I go to our command processor, rather than saying you go to, what I can say instead is you are now in, and then it'll just be so you are now in something, like you are now in house, which is just slightly better. So that kind of changes our message a little bit. But the third thing we wanted to do is not call emit signal twice. And this will also do number 2, which is making our message better, is we can actually make our signal take in an array of text. So the problem right now is that when we emit here, we are creating 2 response variables because this response is getting instanced twice because we're calling this function twice. So we don't want to emit 2 signals. We just want to emit 1, but potentially pass in multiple text values. And so right now our handle response generated function takes a string. So it just has to be one long string, but there's a couple different things Godot lets us do as far as string processing that can make this look a little bit better. And so what I mean by that is rather than changing our function here, and we might eventually do that. Maybe eventually we'll need different types of responses. We might want to add some more colored text. We might want to have some variations to make our game feel a little bit better. But right now what we can do is actually call emit signal once, but pass in an array of strings that we join together. So in order to do this, we're going to create a new variable, which is going to say variable, we can call it strings or messages, whatever you want. And we're not actually going to create an array. So what we want to do is have an array of strings that we join together with a new line. And so what we can do then is use the same response instance, but then have new lines to kind of differentiate between them, just so it looks a little bit better. And this is going to provide us a lot of flexibility later on to whenever we change rooms, not only say what room we're in, but also say the exits, the description, the items, etc. So it'll give us flexibility to add all those things later on. The problem though is we don't want to use an array in Godot because basic arrays do not have a join function. Instead, Godot has a built-in type called a pool string array, which is an array specifically meant for strings that's very memory efficient and has a lot of those standard string functions or standard array functions to strings. And so we're going to use that instead. In order to make that, instead of just creating a basic array like this, we just say pool string array. And we're just going to use the constructor to make one. And what we're going to do here is just have an array. And here we're going to actually add in all of our strings. So this first one, we're just going to copy in and say, grab this. And now we got this. And we can start going from here.
Oh, hey, that's pretty neat. I like that. A pool strings array.
And what I'm going to do now is get rid of this emit response, and we are just going to say strings. And with our strings variable here, we need to make sure that and we join them, and our delimiter, is going to be the new line. And if you're not familiar with this new line character, this \n, is a standard character in strings and really in any language and just computer programming in general that has a new line between.
I was just trying to figure
so
out new line,
for every value
new line
array,
escape
it's gonna add a new
sequences
line side
earlier.
of it, which means that when it gets shown to the user, it'll be like hitting the enter key. It'll be the next line down. And so this is going to let us format our strings very nicely, even though we've got multiple. It's going to join this array into a single string with new line characters in between each separate message. So let's say that we want to have not just our room name, but our room description on the same line. So I can say here, we're going to add another plus, and I'll just have a period here, and I'll say it is, and then we can do some things later with articles, so like a house, or like the castle gates. You don't always want to have a or the, there's different articles you can have, so we'll do some more like string parsing for rooms later on. But here we can just say new room, room description. And we'll want to have some standard practices for how we name our rooms and descriptions. So one thing we can do is if we always want to display our room description as part of the latter half of a sentence, we can just have a convention now that all of our room descriptions will be lowercase. So I can say a random house that you do not recognize. Okay, so now we've got that.
A random house that you do not recognize. I guess I should just change the text over here. House room. Okay, there we go. You got fucking, oh god, do I need to... Why did that not change? I feel like... Okay, there we go. I need to change, like, the actual scene file name. Wait. No, maybe I don't. Maybe I don't. We'll just keep it as room. And then in the main scene, we're gonna do, yeah, we're just gonna keep it starting room. Fuck, what should we name it? Unknown tunnel. A dark, well, I guess it doesn't, a dark, and crumbling underground tunnel. Let's do that.
A house for now. Eventually later, instead of putting the A here, like I said, we could have an article field perhaps, but this will work for now. So now in our command processor, when we print this out, it's going to say you are now in a house. It is a random house you do not recognize. And so that's just going to look and feel a little bit better of a message to the player. It's going to be a little bit more easy to understand and look at. And now we've also got room in our string array here too later on to display the exits. So right now our rooms don't have exits, but we could add a new line that says like exits, you know, and then just like have a list of exits from there. We'll just have this as a stub for now, and then in the next video we'll learn how to add exits to our rooms that we can move between. But for now,
interesting.
This should be good. So if we run,
so where's that? That's in the. Is that in the main? That would be. Oh no, that's in the command processor script. Exits.
Game, we will now see our welcome message up here, welcome to the Retro Text Adventure, and then it'll say you are now in a house. It is a random house that you do not recognize, and then exits, which again we don't have exits yet, but this is way better. Now I can still type stuff and nothing happens. I can type help and go. So we haven't yet connected our go command. That'll be next video when we do exits, but we have rooms in our game now, and these rooms are able to have a name and a description. We're gonna add so much more stuff later on. I'm hoping.
Oh, and I can, let me see. Go west. Hey, we go west.
That we'll get to at least add some stuff like items. But yeah, here it is. Now we've got a game that
nice. That's pretty good. Yeah, I'm liking the potential for a lot of these, the way this is coming together. I'm really trying to make sure that I'm keeping in mind how things work and how they're connected. Just so I can like kind of pocket it in the back of my mind to remind myself to implement certain features and maybe some like graphical and like stylistic choices later on. But I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
Oh no. I didn't know it was possible to get banned from DeviantArt.
Yeah, she made a fan art for Nintendo in 2007, and she got
Was it furry porn?
no.
Oh, okay.
Got banned from DeviantArt because she was under 13. Because she also posted her persona, which is a cat named Rissy.
Oh no.
And
No. Oh.
when she was 11.
That just means that she wasn't smart enough to lie.
No.
Focus time. Yes! Fucking shit! Got him! Fucking got him! Got him! One of the cats farted. Oh man. It smells really bad. Holy shit. It's pizza's over here. It's not a fart. It's not a fart. It's so bad. Oh my god. It's really bad. Why are cats this way? It smells like an old man, like, having his last fart. Nope, 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 nope. It just takes a single spear right through your side. You could be bad. It could happen to you any day. Any day. You could be walking down a street.
Boom, spear.
Boom, spear in your eye. You could be getting a coffee at Starbucks. Boom, spear in your leg, and you're dead. You don't even have a second chance. No chance at all. You could be singing in choir. Boom, spear. Singing in choir. You could be singing choir songs. Boom, spear in the throat. Can't sing no more. All I have to do is pass that assessment. Everything else is just studying. So they give you the materials to study for the assessment. And then when you take the assessment, you either pass or fail. There's no, like, in between. So I can complete all of my I can complete my classes in a week if I wanted to. Or the day that I sign up for it. If I want to be cocky and cheeky. But I completed my last class. Die. Oh.
It's all over, lawbreaker.
Holy fuck.
Your spree is at an end. I'll take any stolen
What?
goods you have.
Hello?
How much new
What are you
is
doing?
yours? Pay your fine, or I'll
It's just-
haul you away.
I'm in him. I am inside his face. My bounty's 5 gold. He's really, really upset. Headless horse. All right. We are back. I'm gonna work on this for probably another hour and a half, and then probably call it a night for a day, because I need to go get my cat's cat food, and they're probably gonna be real upset if I make them wait too much longer. I sounded so much like just like a cat lady right there. I gotta make sure I get my cats their food. let's see. So we need, oh god, I didn't want to start Steam. Okay.
As rooms, and it's much appreciated. Helps me.
So
continue
there's the
making
next video, which is just creating exits between rooms.
In this video, we're going to expand on the room system we implemented in the last game to actually allow going between rooms. So we've created an exit dictionary that exists on each room. So you'll see that now we start in a house and I'm allowed to go east. If I try and go west or a different direction, it'll give me an error saying there's no exit there. And if I try and go east, it'll tell me, hey, you've gone east, you're now outside. And you'll see I can go back west to the room we were just in. So with that, let's get started. So we need to add exits to our rooms now. And the way we're going to do that is to actually use dictionaries. We're going to add a dictionary to each room, and that dictionary is gonna be the exits from that room.
Everyone
And we're gonna
loves
add some nice
dictionaries.
helpers to automatically connect one room to another and vice versa, so you don't have to manually set up both sides of connection. So if you go from house to outside, you don't also have to connect outside the house. It'll happen automatically. So in order to do that, let's first go to our room script. And here we're going to need to add exits. So I'm going to say variable exits, and this is going to be a dictionary, and we'll just make it an empty dictionary for now. Now, we could make this an export variable that you would be able to edit from the editor, and we might do that in the future, but I think we're going to try and do it from code right now. And I know we keep kind of going back and forth on, should we do it by the editor, should we do it by code? The right answer to that question is pretty contextual. Any specific decision about should you do it in the editor or should you do it in code does not necessarily have a right answer. Sometimes you're going to mix and match. Sometimes you'll stick to one, sometimes you'll stick to the other. I think right now I would like to have things in the editor as much as possible because, again, looking forward to potential future features, it'll make it easier to have a visual connector, a visual map, to have rooms that we can edit totally from the editor without having to go to code. But we're not quite there yet. There's a lot of foundation we have to build. And so I think if we do things via code first, when it doesn't make sense to do it by the editor, it'll be easy enough to change over later on. So making our rooms be visual was pretty easy to do them in the editor, but to actually connect them is going to take a little bit more work, and I think it's going to be easier to start off doing it via code. So that's why we're kind of flip-flopping back and forth. Again, feel free to experiment as you want with your own game to try and do different things, but I think for now we're going to keep our connections via code, and we'll try and change that later on if we get enough time in this series. So let's think about what it means to connect a room. Well, we're probably going to want a function, right? And we'll call this function connect exit, I guess we'll say. And we're gonna need a couple things. Whenever we call this function, we need to say which direction this exit is in. So we will say direction. And we'll make this a string for now. We might have an enum later about potential directions that we can use. But for now, we'll just do a string. And so we need to have a direction, and then we also need a room to connect it to. So this is gonna be the other room that we are gonna connect this direction to. And one thing I want to do to make this really easy is I don't want to have to connect the exit both ways. So like if I have a house, right, and I can go outside, I think I mentioned this before, but I don't want to have to connect the house to the outside and then also the house or the outside back to the house if possible. Now, there are some times you might not want that to be the case, so you might have to adjust for your own game. But right now, at least, I don't have plans for one-way connections. I want them to be both, and so I'm going to bake that into our connecting function. We might eventually, one thing you could do is have a separate like func connect exit one way that you could call. So that might be a really easy way to do this, but for now we're just going to do this. And so what I want to do is actually have a match statement here because I'm planning on having pretty standard connection names. So if I say match direction, and let's say that direction is west. This will make a lot of sense in just a second. I can say exits of direction equals room. And one thing I can do to make this connection automatic is also say room.exits of east equals self. Okay, so I'm not saying this is exactly what I want to have. Also, I think that there's I can't reference room here because it's cyclical, but that's fine. Sometimes Godot gets freaked out if you reference the class name from within that class or from another class. There's some weird stuff there, but so what I'm doing here is saying, hey, if the direction we want to connect is west, then create an entry for west in this room's exits and connect it to our new room. But in the new room's exits, connect the inverse of that, which is east, connect that to ourselves, to this room. And so this is kind of verbose. We're gonna add a way to change this later, but say I can do the same thing for east, and I can do exits, and basically the same thing here. So I'm actually just gonna like add all these for the 4 cardinal directions, and then follow up in a second.
Oh.
Okay, so here you can see I've
Okay,
added.
so he duplicates it for each one. I actually think that's what I'm going to do after playing Nier Automata, honestly, now that I'm hearing some of the Skyrim music. And I also, Pizza downloaded Skyrim Special Edition on her new laptop. And I was just like, you know what, maybe it's about that time that I finally returned to Skyrim. So I think that might be what I do after. Because I've never finished Skyrim. Ever. And I've played so much of it, but I just kind of stopped playing it. Probably starting in like 2017.
4 cardinal directions, and then I'm connecting this other room, the inverse of that. So west is east, east is west, north south, south north, etc. So what this is going to do is just make it really easy if we want to connect things in the 4 cardinal directions to just automatically connect both ways of that connection. If you don't want to do that, or you want to use something besides the cardinal directions, you could add a third parameter perhaps that says like override, override, or something like this. So you could make this a boolean, and say bool, and you could default it to
Override
false.
direction.
And then if it's
Interesting.
true, you could then not use this match statement, and then instead have an override, and you could pass that in as maybe another 4th optional parameter. So just some options there. Just because you do it this way doesn't mean you have to stick to connecting it automatically. You could have multiple connections, for example, connect exit both ways, connect one way, connect override, connect rand, whatever. You can do, and you can also make this more than just the 4 cardinal directions. You can do up and down, you can do portal to portal, you can do northwest to southeast, for example. You can do whatever you want. So this system is not actually that rigid, it's pretty flexible, but I just wanted to show this as a really easy way that we're gonna get off the ground running quickly by connecting rooms. Okay, so we have this connect function, but where are we gonna actually connect these from? Where are we gonna call this function? And I think where we want to do this is in our room manager. So this is why we added this node earlier, is we could do it in our game state, but I want our game to really handle kind of connecting between our player input and our responses, and it shouldn't really have to know about how rooms are being set up. So in our room manager, we're actually going to add a script, and here what we're going to do is just in ready, so let me clear everything out except this. There's a way to get rid of all the boilerplate comments on these Godot or GDScript templates, but I just never get around to doing it. But what we want to do is manually connect all these rooms. So first, let's add another room. So if I duplicate our house room, and I'm going to say this is outside room. Let me just drag this over here so we can kind of see.
He acted like he came up with that on the fly, but he already has this whole project planned out. He's like, I don't know, I'll fucking call it. I don't know. We're gonna duplicate this. Barracks room, why not?
I'm going to say you are just outside.
What appears to be a barracks for soldiers, and then oh wait, no, I think that's too much. A crumbling A stone barracks? Stone barracks, why not? A crumbling room. A low ceilinged? No, a crumbling room with a low ceiling and broken weapons. Oh, armaments lining the walls. We'll just do that. I have to come up with the placeholder text on the fly.
To be, you are in like outside in the village or something like that. And so what I want to do is connect these two together. And what I can say is house room dot connect exit. And here we're going to connect and exit. So if we look here, I'm trying to keep this, keep our room manager looking the same as how we actually want to connect it. So if our house room is on the left, then we want to connect our outside room to the east. So from house to outside. And then so we can do is connect to the east, and this is going to be outside room. Now remember, because connect exit is currently connecting both ways, we don't have to say outside room connect exit west house room. It'll happen
Oh,
automatically.
actually,
in
we'll
order
do,
to remember
yeah,
that, I like
it's
to
starting.
work outside or inside out. So I start with our house room and connect all the rooms there, and then if I go to our next room, I only connect the further connections from there. I don't connect back, and you just kind of work your way inside out.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's like... we'd have it over here, and then it becomes like its own little map. That's pretty cool.
So that's just one way to do it. Again, you'll find a way that works for you. But now when our game starts, we're going to connect our house room and our outside room. That connection is going to happen both ways. And what we can now do is actually print out the connections that our current room has anytime we move to a new room. So in order to do that, we can come to our command processor. And remember, we are keeping track of our current room here, so we can get the exits of that room. And one thing we want to do now is when we're changing rooms, we want to print out the available exits for that room. So how can we do this? Well, one thing we can do is we can say, we'll just say var exit string, and we're going to say new room dot exits. So first we're going to get the exits. And now remember, exits is a hash, or a dictionary, which is a hash. And so one way, or a hash map at least. And what we can do now is actually get the keys here. So we can say dot keys, and this is a function that's going to return an array of keys. Now we already know what we can do with arrays, so I'm actually going to convert this to be a pool string array. And so now we're going to have an array of strings, and what we can do here is join, just like we're doing below, but we're going to join with a space. And so we're going to get a space-separated list of exits. And so this is going to be a string, so we are going to do...
Jesus, he went so fast. But I get what he's doing. It's pretty smart.
Same as above, we're going to do exits, and then plus exit string. And now, when we start our game, we'll see that we have an exit of the east. And we're not currently wired up, so if I go...
Interesting. Oh shit, wait. Attempt to call function connect exit in base null instance on a null instance. Starting room. Oh, okay. That's where I fucked up. There we are.
Go west or go east, nothing happens. But you're seeing that we can now output the actual exits that the room we're in has. And so now we can actually wire up changing rooms from our go command. So there's a couple things we need to keep in mind as we try and do this. One is that we only want to let the user go to a valid room. You can only use a valid exit. So in our go command, there's a couple of conditions we'll do. First is to say if current room dot exits dot key.
And this is in the main script. Func go. No, it's in the command processor. Ah! Func go. If current room dot exits.
Keys that includes, and then here we're going to have second word. Oh, whoops, not as a string there. So if our current exits includes the second word, so if the second word is west, we want to make sure that west is an actual key in our hash. So if it includes it, then we can say you go to second word, etc. What we can do else, we'll have another.
Oh, he's just moving inside this function. There we are. Else.
Another message, which will just be returned. That is not a valid exit from this room. Or you can say something a little less, I mean, that sounds super stiff. Maybe we can say like, this room has no exits in that direction. That sounds a little bit less like a programmer speak here. So yeah, now we are saying, hey, if this is an actual room this way, then you go there. Else, there we'll just print out a message to help the player saying, hey, you can't actually go that way. It's not a valid direction. And so this is almost good, except the one thing we need to do is actually call our change room function here. And so what we need to pass in is the room in that direction. So we can say change room. And how are we going to get this new room? Well, we can say current room dot exits, and we can get second word. And we know that this will be a valid key here because we're already we're calling this includes here. We're only doing this if the second word, this direction, is included in the keys for our current room. So we're going to get a valid exit here, which will return an actual room, and then we're going to change our room to that. Okay, so what we can do is we're going to return you go this way. I'm going to actually add a period here, and that way it'll be a little bit more grammatically correct. Okay, awesome. So I think we're good to go, except, oh, actually, sorry, I do this sometimes. It's not includes, it's actually has here. So on arrays, the function to find something and see if it has something is just has. I kind of get that confused sometimes, sorry about that. So I think if we run this now, we should see that our game works. We're in a house, we can go east. So what if I go west? We should see our error message, which we did.
Interesting. So Go west. Go east. Nice. Okay. Exits west, and it like automatically go west. Okay, but it doesn't like actually take us. Wait. Interesting. I kind of wish that this displayed before this.
You do. This room has no exit in that direction. But if I go east, we should see we are now outside. It is outside in the village. Exit is west. So if I say go east now, we get the error message. If I say go west, boom, we are back inside the house. So look at that. Just like that, we are able to move between our rooms. We have added a simple system of exits, which are just dictionaries that live on each of our rooms. And we can go west, we can go east, and all. And you can easily customize this. Like I said, super easy to add other directions, really easy to add another function to connect things one way, or to connect things where maybe the message between each room is kind of different. You can customize this as needed. It should be pretty easy to do. But we've handled our ability to go back and forth between rooms now. Okay, so things are looking pretty good. There's just one weird thing though. If I type go east, you'll see that it gives us the output about the new room we're in. You're now outside, it's outside in the village, etc.
Okay. He knows.
Before it actually says what command we went. And
He
it's kind of
knows.
confusing. It'd be a lot better if this go east appeared before this text right here that tells us what just happened. And so we're going to change that now. And in order to do that, we're going to get rid of this signal that we created earlier this video, and I know it's kind of quick when we change rooms. And the reason why is because this is, so I wanted to show this signal and how it worked to show one way to do it. You could either change your process command system to use signals almost exclusively. This would be one way to do it. You could change all these returns to emit a signal. But because we're using a system where we're returning values all around, we're actually going to get rid of this response generated here. And what we're going to do is, instead of changing room emitting a signal, it's just going to return strings here. And we're going to add this return value. And so in the places we're using this, we actually need to return this. So in change room, we're going to say change response. This is going to be a variable. And then we're going to say, so you go this way, second word. But what we're actually going to do is do kind of the same thing down here where we're joining the string together. And so now that we have our change response, we want to output this in the same message, but below this message saying, hey, you do go this way. We're confirming what the user did. So we're kind of saying, this is what the user did. Here's the new thing because of that. Here's the new room you're in. And so what we're going to do, or what we're going to do here, very similar to what we did before, is a pool string array. And because we are making so many of these, it's probably a good idea now for us to make some kind of a helper function that'll do a lot of this work and this joining and concatenating for us. So we can do that in just a second. But so we're gonna make an array. We want the first element to be you go here, you go west, etc. Because we want that to appear first. And then after that, we're gonna add our change response. And so here we'll have this. And again, we want to join this and we're gonna join it. Our delimiter is going to be a new line. And so now if I do this, you'll see that if I go east, it looks way better. You go east. You are now here. It's outside the village. Here your exit. So this just looks way better. One thing you'll notice we've lost though is that we're not actually outputting the welcome text or the initial room text at the beginning. So we've got to change that real quick. And the reason why is because this initialize here, this is returning a string, but we're not actually.
Wait, hold on. I think I might have done something wrong.
First, and then after that, we're going to add our change response. And so here we'll have this. And again, we want to join this and we're going to join it. Our delimiter is going to be a new line. And so now if I do this, you'll see that if I go east, it looks way better. You go.
Nice. It do be working.
Go east. You are now here. It's outside the village. Here your exit. So this just looks way better. One thing you'll notice we've lost though is that we're not actually outputting the welcome text or the initial room text at the beginning. So we've got to change that real quick. And the reason why is because this initialize here, this is returning a string, but we're not actually returning it from initialize. So we can do that. And again, we might have to change this later on. We're kind of doing some fluid work here and changing things a lot on the fly. The reason why is because with a game like a text adventure, there's just so much background stuff you've got to start building up. There's a lot of foundation. That's why it took so long really even to get to adding gameplay mechanics to our game. It's just because there's a lot of different systems you're trying to build up. So apologies that we're kind of overriding and changing and editing, deleting, etc. as we go. But that's just kind of how game development is. And as you continue to develop your game, you'll realize better and worse things and
That's
ways
fair.
to do it. And some of this has been planned, ways that I've tried to change it and knew we'd be changing it. Some of it is just as I've been making these tutorials, I realized there might be better ways to do it. So thanks for sticking with it, and I hope that this process of iteration just kind of introduces you to what game dev is really like and helps you start building some of those iterative skills on your own and kind of identifying better ways to do things as you are developing. So with that said, we're now returning something from initialize. So in our game, what we can do is say var so we'll say like starting room response or something.
So we don't even need to initialize anymore? Oh, no, we do it before.
This is going to be a string, and what we can do is just handle response generated, etc. This one, so we can say handle response generated for starting room response. And we don't have this response generated signal anymore. We took it away because we're not using it. So we can actually get rid of this connect line and handle.
Jesus, he is like jumping all over the place.
So we'll say like starting room response or something. This is going to be a string, and what we can do is just handle response generated, etc. for this one, so we can say handle response generated for starting room response. And we don't have this response generated signal anymore. We took it away because we're not using it. So we can actually get rid of this connect line and handle response generated is kind of not the right word here because this is a past tense action, but we want it to be more imperative in the imperative tense now because it's a function we're calling to do, or to do something. It's not handling a signal that was called. So we can change this to be create response. So we're kind of differentiating between this create response method, which will actually create it itself, and then add response, which adds it to the game. So they're two separate things. So we'll call this create response, and then it kind of makes sense. This function creates our response instance and gives it its values, and then add response is what actually puts it into the game. And so now we have create response. We can come up here and say create response. Create response.
I hate that it doesn't. I kind of wish that it would change that dynamically when you change it in one place.
And now when we play our game, we'll see our initial welcome text and our initial starting room text. So I can go.
Jeez.
In this
Keep
video, we're gonna
accidentally
expand on-
refreshing the tutorial instead of, because F5 is the same. Go east. Nice. Go west. Pretty cool.
The room system we implemented in the last
It's
game
all
to actually allow
coming
going,
together.
adding gameplay mechanics to our game. It's just because there's a lot of different systems you're trying some of those iterative skills on your right word here because this is a text and our initial starting room text. So I can go west, error, go east, and now you go east, here you are. And this is just a lot more clear, it looks a lot better, and we've now standardized our command processing system so it's always returning values. Again, we might change it later on if we find a better way, but for now it's just working one standard way.
All right. So I'm going to go over a little bit of what we did so far. I want to go through and do like comments to our current room. Variable to track current room. Return change room. Initialize the first room. Function to process player commands. Function to initialize the first room. Commands currently broken up into 2 words. Face masks do kind of make you feel like a juggalo a little bit. Only set second word in command if one exists, if one was entered. Commands. Func go. Function. Handle player movement. Function to display help text. Message to be displayed if player does not enter a second word after go. Check to see if exit entered is a valid exit. Function to transition. Well, to move the player to another room and display its name and description. We added a bunch of stuff into here as well. Response is just a label. It seems kind of confusing. I don't like that it's response and then input response. We might need to change that later. Create response generated. Function to instance new response labels. Function to add responses. The scene tree. Then delete any old responses. All right. And then there's the room script. Make room name and room description editable in inspector. Function to automatically Connect exits. Between rooms. Okay, I think that's pretty much it for comments and trying to like somewhat understand. Like I said, I try to go through and comment stuff and comment out the basic gist of what something is supposed to do, so that way I can have a better idea of how to interpret it later in case I forget what something does. Okay, now we can move on to the next part, and then I think that will probably be it for today. It's about 30 minutes long. Number 10. Oh, this is number 8. Number 9. Oh no, where's number 9?
In this video, we're gonna start.
There it is, I think. Nope. Oh wait, we already did. Wait, no we didn't.
Is to be exit instead of self. And so now what we're doing is we're saying, so let's say for example, real example here, that we've got, this is our house, right? And we're connecting our house to our outside. Well, our house of east is going to change our room dictionary, our exit. In this video, we're going to learn how to use tool scripts in Godot so that we can actually have our room UI update in real time as we change variables. So instead of a house, I could type a house that something. You could type a house that you don't recognize, etc. But it'll update in real time. So we're going to learn how to use tool scripts in order to provide a really nice user interface.
I wonder why it's not setting the, because it's supposed to be setting the room name and the description up here, but it's not. This is the description of the room. Yeah, there's nothing that's setting it to that. Weird. Oh, it's because... I think it's because I had it blank. No, that didn't change it either. What the fuck? Oh, okay. I think it was... That didn't do anything either.
And we are going to change our room dictionary, our exit dictionary, to use exits as a resource. So we're going to create a new exit resource, talk about how to use resources, and then change our command processor to look at these resources to make exits really cool and easy to expand later on, so we can make locked exits, for example. So you see here, if I say go east, it works just like we did in room script. And the way we're going to do this is by making
Room name. This is the description of the room. Dictionary. I don't think there's anything over here that's like setting it. That's so weird. I mean, it works, but it's not setting it up here, and that's a problem because like that's a big part of why we are doing it out here is to.
I think I mentioned. Whoops, override. But what we want to do is manually connect all these rooms. So first, let's add another room. So if I duplicate our house room, and I'm going to say this is outside room. Let me just drag this over here so we can kind of see. I'm going to say you are just outside. This would be you are in like outside in the village or something like that. And so what I want to do is connect these two together. And what I can say is houseroom.connect exits. And here we're going to connect an exit. So if we look here, I'm trying to keep this keep our room manager the same, looking the same as how we actually want to connect it. So if our house room is on the left, then we want to connect our outside room to the east. And this is going to be outside room. Now remember, because connect exit is currently connecting both ways, we don't have to say outside room.connect exit work outside or inside connect back, is actually print out the connections that our current room has anytime multiple exits. Remember, exit, know what we can do here is join string, so east. And we're not currently when we're in two options we'll need. And then here we're going to do else, we'll have another this room actually go that way, it's room. We're gonna think if we run this, we can go east and a string array. And you'll see this initial game. We'll say like starting using it, something, it's not handling a signal that was called. So we can change this to be create response. So we're kind of differentiating between this create response method, which will actually create it itself, and then add response, which adds it to the go east, and now the function it has. So that's about the tutorial command word, every function.
It's not showing me.
Look the same in the editor. And so what we want to do first is fix that.
Oh,
so
okay.
The way that we're actually going to make our room UI components update when we change the variables is by going into our room scene. So I can just click either a house or outside room and hit this open in editor button. And now that I'm in our room scene, I'm going to open our room script. And the way we're going to do this is by making our room script a tool script. So let me just give you a very basic overview of what a tool script is. So in Godot, the Godot editor itself is actually a Godot game. So just let that sink in for a second. The editor itself is a Godot game that is running on the Godot engine. What this means is that Godot lets you have a really amazing level of connection to the editor itself from your scripts. That's why everything works together so well. And what that means is that we can actually define scripts that run not only in our game when we run it by hitting Command B or Control B, but actually run in the editor as we're developing our game. And you can imagine how useful a script that runs in the editor might be when we're trying to do something like this, when we're trying to update our room UI component here based on the values we set on this right side over here for our room name and room description variables. And so because that's what we want to do, we're going to use a tool script here to actually make that happen. And so all you need to do to make a tool script work or to turn a script into a tool script is just add the tool keyword at the very top of the script. So I'll start a new line and just type tool. And as soon as I save this, instantly this code is now executing in the editor for each scene that is a room scene in our game. Now, some quick notes. Because tool scripts run in the editor, you can do some somewhat damaging things to your game. So if you're queuing nodes free or freeing nodes, freeing memory or deleting things, you can sometimes mess things up or crash your game if you're not careful. You want to be really careful not to free up memory or nodes or scenes that your game relies on and do things that might mess up your scene tree. So just be aware of that. Because tool scripts are running in the editor, they are open to doing things that might cause some damage to your game. Now, just because they're a little risky doesn't mean we shouldn't use them. They're an incredibly valuable part of the Godot engine, but it's just something to be aware of. Now that we have our tool script, this script is executing in the editor, but the problem is that nothing's actually happening because we don't have any functions that are being executed. We have this connect exit function, but this only runs when someone calls it. However, if we use some of Godot's built-in functions, such as the process or ready functions, those will run in our editor. So if you define a ready function, for example, when you run your tool script, or when you add that scene to your tree in your editor, that ready function will run. And you might be asking, well, if I've got a ready function and I have stuff that I want to happen only in the game, but not in the editor, but I still want to make this script a tool script, how do I make that work? And it's a great question, and Godot provides a way for you to run code only in the editor or only in your game. And by only in the game, I mean when you run your game from the editor or you run it from an executable because you've packaged up and shipped out your game. And we'll go over that in just a second. But before that, just an overview of what a tool script is. So I hope that kind of makes sense. Again, feel free to ask questions in the comments below or join our Discord if you're struggling with tool scripts. They can be a little bit confusing, but I hope that's just a general overview that gets you a bit familiar with it. So because this is now running in the editor, let's think about what we want to do here. If I go to our game scene, basically, whenever I add a new room scene, I want to be able to change our room name and room description and have those changes reflected in the editor here. Right now, I've got our outside room selected, and you can see that it's got, well, it doesn't have anything right now, but you can see that it's, if I were to give this a name, like, you know, a house, you'll see that if I save that, it doesn't actually change what's in the editor. The UI doesn't change, and so us as developers aren't really helped by having this here because it doesn't immediately just show us what our game map looks like. So we want to change that. So in order to do that, we need to tell Godot somehow that whenever these variables change, our room name and room description, whenever they change, we need to update our room name and room description labels. Because remember, we have access to these labels right here. So since it's a tool script, the code's already running. We just need to actually hook into the changing of these variables. And in order to do that, we're going to use the setGet functionality built into Godot. Now, setGet is a keyword or a concept that's familiar to a lot of different languages. Basically, what it means in Godot is you can define a set function and a get function. You can do only one, or you can do both. You don't have to have a set and a get. You could just do a set or just do a get. And what it means is that if you have a set function, whenever this variable is changed, it doesn't matter where from, whether it's from the editor or from another piece of code running in your game, it doesn't matter. Whenever it changes, your set function will be run instead of just changing this variable itself. Same thing for your get function. From the editor or in your game, whenever someone tries to get this variable, your get function will be run instead if it is defined. The syntax for doing this is to say set function. So we say set get like you have here, and then you give the name of your set function. We don't have one yet. This is just a default value. So this you don't literally type set function, but you replace this with the get function and then comma get function. Now, like I said, the set and the get are optional. You have to have at least one, but you don't have to have both. If you wanted to have both, you would define it like this. But let's say we just wanted the set function. I would get rid of the get function name and the comma, and now whenever someone tries to set room name, the set function will run. But if they try and get room name, it will get just the straight variable itself. It will not run a get function. However, let's say I wanted to have a get function, but no set function. I could get rid of set function here, and then just type comma get function. And this empty comma means there is no set function, but there is a get function. I think the syntax is pretty ugly. Thankfully, it's going to be a lot better in Godot 4 when we have annotations. It seems like that's the current path that the Godot core developers are going down. Anyway, this is a lot. I hope it makes sense. Again, feel free to ask questions, but hopefully this gives you just enough familiarity with set and get to use them. In our case, we don't really care about getting room name. We can just return the room name itself, so we don't need a get function. We do want a set function, though. So I'm going to make a new function called set room name. And I need to actually define this name here. You'll see that the setter function isn't defined. I'm getting this error down at the bottom because I'm saying this is our set function, but it's not actually defined. So let's make it now. I'll create a new function. I'll just copy it in, set room name, and we need to give it a variable. We know that the variable that comes in is going to be the new value for this variable. And because this is a string, so is our parameter that comes in here. So I'm going to say new name, and this is going to be a string. And what we want to do is two things. One, remember that we want to change our room name, this label's text value, to actually be our new name. So I'm going to do the $, which is how we get nodes or scenes in our scene tree. And I'm going to find room name right here. And if you don't get that autocomplete there, like you just saw me have, remember, make sure you're on your room scene. You only get autocomplete when you have the scene open that the script you're working in is attached to.
Wait. I pass on that. Margin container.
So now that I've got room name, it's a label, remember, so I want to get the text property and set this to be new name. So this is going to work, except for one major issue, which is now that we've defined a set variable here, room name, this variable, is not going to be changed by default. We need to actually make sure we explicitly change the value of room name as a variable within our set function. So here we're changing the value of the label. We need to actually change the value of the variable itself. So I need to say room name, and this is going to be equal new name. So here we're saying, hey, whenever we change our room name from the editor, because again, we're not really changing this from our game, we're only going to be changing our room names from the editor. So whenever we change our room name, call this set room function. And within this, update our room label to be the new name and update the variable itself to be the new name. Whew, it's kind of a lot trying to explain all this quickly, but hopefully in a way that makes sense. Let's actually see this in action now to make sure it's working. So if I come back to our game and I select our house room here and I update our name, if I say a house, we'll see it actually changes in the editor, which is amazing. All of a sudden, we've got a really great way to just change this one value here, and it'll not only change in our game, but in the editor itself. I can do the same thing with our outside room. And we can say outside the house. And again,
Doing it now? Hey, it kind of is. But I think I need to... It's not setting the description.
all of a sudden we've got this value that is updating. And now within our editor, we can totally see the map of our game itself, of our text adventure. So this is incredibly helpful for you developing a text adventure game. You can instantly see your map. And again, if we ever gave a viewport where the user could see this, they would instantly have kind of an overlay. They could see the game map as well. You wouldn't have to implement a separate map on top of your game already as it exists. Now, we've done our room name, but we have not done our room description, so let's do that now. If I go back to our room scene, so hit this open in editor, and then I hit our room script, we can do pretty much the same thing with our room description. So I'm going to add a set get, and this will be set room description. I'm going to copy this name just like I did before. Come over here, again, we'll see the setter function is not defined error, which is good. That's how we know Godot is working as we'd expect. And I'm going to say new description as the parameter for this function, because this is not the name, it's the description. I'm really going to kind of do the exact same thing here. So if I start typing room description, we'll see it pop up. Again, .text, and I'm going to set this to be the new description. So here we are getting our room description label. We're getting the text property on that label. And the reason we're doing that is, remember, this is that text property we're changing. This is what we want to change, not the label itself, just this text property. And once we get the text property, we are updating the description or the text to be our new description. However, though, remember, just as above, we're not, because we're using the setter function, we aren't updating our room description anymore. So we need to explicitly update that variable. So I'll say room description, and this is going to be new description. Okay. So now that we've done that, I should be able to go back to our game, and we'll see our room names have persisted. So when I click on these, we see our room names have persisted. There's still a house and outside the house. Now if I change the description, we should see that also update. So I can say a random house that you've never seen before. Anyway, so we've got our room now, and we've seen that when we update our room description, it updates on here. And if I click it back and forth and switch scenes, it persists. So if I save this, we see that our room name and description persist, which is really amazing. It's all of a sudden we've made this so much easier for us as developers. I can do the same thing with our outside room. So we can say you are outside of the random house in the middle of the village. Again, we can make actually good content for our game later. Right now, excuse my poor writing. One thing you might notice is that our room description is kind of hard to read because it's a lot of text in a small field. And one really cool thing about Godot, if I go into our room script again, is that you can actually provide some more editor hints to tell it what type of export variables there are. So this is not actually defining what type of variable the variable itself is, but it's telling the editor how to display that exported variable to you as a developer. And one thing that it allows is there's a multi-line flag that you can give it. So this room description, it'd be really nice if it was a huge text box, a multi-line text box, and not just like a single line thing. So what we can actually do is after string here, in our export hints, I can make a comma and then do multi-line, just all caps here. And this is one of many available editor hints or export hints you can give the Godot engine. There's a whole page in the Godot documentation about export hints. I highly recommend you looking it up. I'll try and include that in the description for this video. But now you'll see if I go to our house room or house game, or our outside room or house room, you'll see that this is a huge text box now, which makes it way easier to edit. We could do the same thing for our room name, but I think they're generally going to be short enough we won't. But just wanted to show that that's a way that we can make our editor or our developer experience a little bit better by making our room description string our text boxes multi-line rather than just single line. Wow, that was a lot of work just to get our UI updating, but now we've got that going forward, which is going to make editing and adding new rooms and changing their values really, really easy. So I hope you're tracking. I hope that's been a good intro to both export or to tool scripts, to set gets, and you're starting to see the
It's been very, very useful
using
so far.
an engine
Trying to
like Godot,
figure out
even
how
for
like
simple games like
text
Text Adventure
and
because
data
of the really
and
awesome functionality it
signals
gives you
work.
right out of the box. So now that we have spent all that time getting our export variables working, now we can actually start working on beefing up our exits a little bit and making them better. So if I come into our room script, again by just selecting the script button in the editor here on our house or outside room, so we've got exits here. It's a dictionary. The keys in that dictionary are strings. The values are rooms, right? We're setting.
I feel like there's like an error that's because I can't test the game, it crashes. So the argument new text is never used in the function on it. Get node not found margin container rows room name. Margin container. Rows room name. Yeah, I mean room name isn't in there, I guess. Maybe I need to Maybe I do need to put them up here. Will it work now? Nope, still won't work.
Thing, our Exodus, we see that, come over here again, we'll see that for you developing a text adventure game, you can instantly see yours right here. So, since it's a tool script, the code's already running, we just need to actually hook into the changing of these variables. And in order to do that, we're going to use the set-get functionality built into Godot. Now, set-get is a keyword or a concept that's familiar to a lot of different languages. Basically, what it means in Godot is you can define a set function and a get function. You can do only one, or you can do both. You don't have the straight variable itself. It will not run a get function. However, let's say I wanted to have a get function, but no...
Okay, with this bug, I think I'm going to probably call it here. Like I said, I've been working on this all morning, so. But yeah, thank you for anybody that stuck around and hung out a little bit. This has been it's been nice for me to hold myself accountable to a couple hours of like real intensive game dev shit. So but yeah, I hope you all have a good rest of your weekend. I am going to be back on Wednesday with some more Nier Automata, which will be at 4 p.m. EST, and then next Friday will also be Nier Automata, and then next Saturday we'll probably work on this some more, or maybe do some art, music stuff. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, have a good start to your week. Stay hydrated, take care of yourselves, and I will see you later. Peace out.